FM News Talk 97.1. On-demand audio.
He is the president of DC International Advisory at DCIadvisory.com. He is Stephen Yates. Good to have you with us, my friend.
Hi, Tony. Thanks for having me.
Nah, please. Always a pleasure. Love the chance that I get to sit in, and there you are. And while everyone is certainly talking about the Supreme Court decision, talking about SB 1070, the Arizona immigration law, waiting to see what will be happening with Obamacare in just a few days, quietly over the weekend, the Egyptians decide that the Muslim Brotherhood is the way to go. So let me start with basics. Did Egypt actually elect the Muslim Brotherhood, or did the Muslim Brotherhood just decide that they wanted to be in charge already?
Well, certainly the Muslim Brotherhood has been planning for this for about 90 years. And so I think that the hardcore supporters that have toiled over the years in pursuit of what most of us would consider to be a radical agenda, they have to be exuberant. They used the system that was in place. And one of the biggest problems we've had in this situation in Egypt and elsewhere is that when a dictatorship is toppled, you're often left with the most organized alternative that has the greatest advantage. And usually those groups are tough and sometimes dirty enough to have survived under the tight regime prior. And that's what we have, Muslim Brotherhood now ruling Egypt.
Well, when you talk about groups that have it together, one of those is the Egyptian military. How are they in a position to willingly, if you will, give up the power?
Well, there are a couple of extremely difficult challenges facing the military in Egypt. I mean, we didn't really have a choice about whether uncertainty was going to unfold in Egypt or across the broader region. We had a lot of choices about how to deal with it. So did their military. Mubarak was not going to last. And there was going to have to be a transition. They thought they had a plan to make it, but events ran beyond their control. They still remain with a great deal of power in their hands. They have stopped the Muslim Brotherhood-run parliament. They are taking over the constitutional rewriting process, and they're essentially there to weigh in some ways modeled after Turkey in decades past, to try, if Islamist groups organize or others try to go too far, they step in and ensure stability. It remains to be seen. They face their toughest test now going forward.
One of the things that I think maybe struck people very, very oddly, maybe it's a standard course and we don't know it. It just hits the ear so strange. Muslim Brotherhood declares victory. They get a call from the White House. Is that standard operating procedure?
It is fairly standard when you have election outcomes generally. And especially if there's one that is high profile. I do think that this election process would qualify as being high profile. I think what's most unfortunate, this is really where I think the Obama administration lost this future development in Egypt, is that they had early on been engaged with the Muslim Brotherhood. If they had invested a minimal amount of effort in engaging the alternatives to the Muslim Brotherhood in the opposition to Mubarak, there might have been some difference in the outcome that we're witnessing now. But if you look at the visitor logs of what kind of delegations were received in the White House from the time uncertainty broke out till today, it was basically the military or the Muslim Brotherhood. And so if you're an opposition person in Egypt, who do you think got your back, as Obama likes to say?
Seriously, the president seems to spend a lot of time wondering who's got his back, and it seems, at least in this country, less and less and less. I'd hate to think that he actually believes that, well, as long as the Muslim Brotherhood has got my back, everything's going to be okay in Egypt. Even he, that's a little bit of a hyperbole there, but even he can't think that things are going to work out well for the Egyptian people.
I don't think if he takes a serious look at it, he can believe that the Muslim Brotherhood is a positive step forward in the democratic process in a very vital and dangerous part of the world. But at the same time, from my point of view, this president has never looked abroad for anything other than apology and retreat. His revolution is here at home. He's sort of leaving the chips to fall where they may abroad. And I just think that is dereliction of his primary constitutional duty and really puts a lot of our interests and our allied interests at too great a risk. And it's up to Mitt Romney now, as the only real alternative to him going forward, to articulate what his plan would be. And there's a lot of gaps to fill in there.
We're speaking with Stephen Yates of DC International Advisory, DCIadvisory.com. One of the things we heard immediately after this Muslim Brotherhood victory, the pact between Egypt and Israel, well, maybe we don't need it. It's kind of old. Do I have to pay attention to that? It's not necessary. Exactly how tenuous, I should rephrase, how much more tenuous does it get in the Middle East? And give me some specifics of things that can get ugly.
Well, that treaty is a very, very important measure. I don't believe that Israel feels safe, period. I mean, it really, when it comes to every single issue, ranging from Iran to Syria to the uncertainty in Egypt, all the way around, they can't feel like this administration has been standing side by side with them. And the developments in Egypt only make it that much worse. The border issues between Israel and Egypt are quite front and center at this point. And right now, I think that the Muslim Brotherhood is saying what they've been well advised by their media-savvy advisors over many years to say, what we want to hear. And the proof is really in the actions going forward. But just think of it. If you're the leader of a movement that has been literally waiting most of the last century to take power, are you really going to miss this moment in history to assert your agenda? I doubt it.
While we've got another minute, let me turn the gears half a click, if I can. You have Syria shooting down a Turkish airplane, a Turkish fighter. The Turks have a magnificent army. They are NATO people. They have the top technology. Exactly how did the Syrians do this? And are the Turks planning on responding? And how bad does that get for not only people like Israel, but people like Iran who want to have the total hegemony in the area?
Well, I think that the more the Turks are assertive in shaping the outcome in Syria, the better most of us are going to be. At least
even though they're going more Islamist?
Number one, Obama's not going to do anything, I don't believe. The alternatives in the region usually are pushing the wrong side of the ideological and sectarian balance sheet. And I think that the Turks, more than any of the other active people involved, know who's safe to deal with and who's not. And they're going to have a greater national interest than we in shaping the outcome. I don't think it's ideal for Israel, but under very bad circumstances, I think the Turks are tough, and Assad has to actually be somewhat afraid that they've kicked the bee's nest with them.
Even though the Turks are moving more and more Islamist every single day, you feel safer with them moving in certain directions? Do you feel you would like to see them further engage with Syria?
It comes down to a question relative to whom. Are we going to rely on Vladimir Putin? I think we take him off the balance sheet. We're going to rely upon the Iranians, who clearly have invested. I think we need a balance to them. Are we going to rely on the Saudis? Well, they are Islamists. And so I think relative to what factors we have to deal with, assuming into the equation an absence of U.S. powered influence, which I think is unfortunately the case, I'm afraid that's where we are right now.
Stephen Yates, DC International Advisory, DCIadvisory.com. Sir, a pleasure, my friend.
Thank you, Tony. Anytime.